We're ready to begin our regular scheduled board meeting. And of course, we're happy to see everyone, but especially happy to see Morgan and Lasher, and congratulations again. And someone mentioned your admittance ticket was to be the baby. But we'll welcome you anyway.
Thank you for letting me in without her.
At this time, roll call.
Mr. Alexander?
Present.
Mrs. Baylor?
Here.
Mr. Bravo? Here. Mrs. Lasher?
Here.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Reverend Walker?
Present. At this time, we will be led in our, did you want to make?
After pledge.
We'll be led in our Pledge of Allegiance by our NJROTC.
Hold. Colors. Ready. Got it. Left. And colors. Ready. Got it.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Harry. Colors. Ready. Cut. Post. Forward. March. Color guard. Hold. Order. Colors. Ready. Cut. Post the colors. Ready. 2. Up, out, face. Harry. Arms. Ready. Cut. Forward. March. Color guard. Hold. Order. Arms. Cut. Right. Face.
Hi, I'm Thomas Black. I'm going to be a senior at Elliott Community Learning Center, and I plan to enlist in the United States Army after my graduation.
I am Ethan Wilhelm. I'm going to my sophomore year of high school, and I plan to be a particle physicist after I graduate high school.
Tyler Allowine. I am a junior, and I plan on, after graduation, to be a civil engineer in the military.
I'm Muksam Nimbu, and I'm a sophomore, and I want to be an astrophysicist when I graduate.
Left, face, Harry, arms, ready, cut, forward, march.
Thank you again for your outstanding work that you do and the service that you render. Thank you very much. Thank you. At this time, I would ask, because of the lengthiness of our meeting today, that we would dispense with our community and school reflections. I don't believe we have anyone to address the board. Communications and recognitions. And at this time, approval of our minutes meeting minutes for July the 11th and July 15th. I need a motion.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Alexander?
Same. Sorry.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Abstain.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes. Before we continue, at this time, Mr. Pendleton will share with us, you already see some differences in technology for our guests and board members. All of this is a new experience for us, so we're going to take a few moments and get a little tutorial.
A very brief one. So summer is definitely a time of transition for us all. And so we are going to model Board Docs, which is a company that's in hundreds of school districts and governmental agencies around Ohio. And Board Docs is really a seamless transition tool for the board, not only to assist in the making of our minutes, but also to have a nice public interface that's a lot more seamless. So this is not, I just want to make sure for the record that Board Docs is not our official minute-taking software, that we are still on paper for the next couple of board meetings. We'll make that announcement before we do that. So as board members want to log in, see the dashboard or up on the screen, you can kind of follow along with the way that we're moving through that. So thank you.
Thank you. Our superintendent's recommendations at this time.
Mr. President, I have before me for your consideration 50 personnel recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Baylor? Yes. Mr. Bravo? Yes. Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes. And at this time, I'll have Kathy introduce maybe one or two people who are in new assignments.
I have just a couple of people here this evening. Hopefully, we have a couple more that might be coming to join us a little bit later at what usually is their regular board meeting time. But Ms. Wilson, Don, if you could please stand. Tonight, I'm introducing to you Mrs. Don Wilson. She is a graduate of Central Howard High School and attended Case Western Reserve, where she obtained a Bachelor of Science in Music Education, emphasizing in music therapy. She also attended the University of Akron, where she earned her Master of Science in Education Administration. Dawn began her teaching career as a music teacher with Akron Public Schools in 1981 at Riedinger Middle School. She was named Teacher of the Year at Riedinger in 1994. In 2001, she was named Assistant Principal at Lincoln Elementary for the 2001-2002 school year, and then moved on to different buildings, serving at Higher, Goodrich, Jennings, and Perkins Middle School. She was promoted to principal at Miller South at the start of the 2012-13 school year, and most recently for this past 18-19 school year, she has been the principal at Innis CLC. Tonight, we are recommending her for the Fine Arts Learning Specialist, reporting to Karen Gijic. Curriculum and instruction. Congratulations.
Afternoon.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I love kids. I love education.
Is Mr. Curzon here? Yes.
I apologize. I just
Okay.
my husband was able to get here. I wanted to make sure that.
All right.
Very well done.
I don't think Mr. Curzon is here. I believe Mr. Proctor is out of town, as is Sarah Kramer. And the other person we would be waiting for would be Mr. Willie Cook, and I have not seen him. So, great. Thank you.
Next, Mr. President, I have before me for your consideration 2 motions and 13 resolutions on the consent agenda. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
And finally, Mr. President, I have before me for your consideration 23 business affairs recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any questions or comments?
One question, and I forgot to get this to Mrs. Falk. Number 9, can you explain that for me and who that's for?
Oh, I can handle that one. That's our annual support for Project Grad Akron. We've done that ever since Project Grad's inception.
Okay, and that'll be for Akron Public School teachers or?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor? Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Superintendents,
No report at this time.
no president's report at this time. Treasurer's report.
No report.
Committee reports, legal and contracts, board policy. Committee. No report. Finance and capital management.
No report.
Report. Instructional policy and student achievement committee.
I would just point out the papers that were left at your spot regarding LeBron James Family Foundation, the IPS report. Just take a look at that. Also, the Engagement Center invite for the ribbon cutting, and can't let the day go by without thanking the LeBron James Family Foundation for what we just approved as far as funding for the IPS school. Also, I sent you over the weekend the update from OSBA. That has a lot about the new graduation requirements in it. I had the pleasure of having a good one-on-one with Dr. McWilliams-Woods to kind of take a deeper dive into that, but I'm sure we'll have a report on that soon to the board about what's upcoming, but also there are some legislative updates in that. So if you get a chance to look at that PowerPoint, it'll save you the several hours that I had driving to Columbus and and some of the other stuff that was not as necessary. But a lot of that is really good meat and potatoes to take a look at.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I know the board members in getting that over the weekend was very thorough and
There's a lot in that budget that had to do with education, way more than is typical. So.
appreciate that. Any unfinished business? Any new business?
I know there's an item on the agenda regarding an amendment to the IPS documentary agreement, but I did hear from legal counsel that that language is not ready yet, so that will have to go to the next board meeting.
It is my duty at this time then, pursuant Ohio Revised Code Section 12122, G3, that the board would adjourn to meet the board legal counsel to discuss disputes involving the board and/or the school district, and that are the subject of impending or imminent court action, and also G4, to review, to discuss negotiations or collective bargaining.
We'll need 21.22G1 as well for personnel.
G1 for personnel as well.
So move.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will now move up to the 5th floor in the conference room for our executive session. And then we will return down here
For all public.
for all public activity after that.